In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a web server so that in order to communicate with two different devices via that web server. So we're going to be creating a web server and as well as a few PHP files so that that PHP file would be able to communicate with our Android Java files and as well as sockets, and then we'd be able to store all the data inside the database. So let's get started. Make sure that you have installed an offline web server that may be anyone like MEMP, WAMP, XAMPP, anyone. I've installed XAMPP server. So inside the XAMPP folder, get into the htdocs folder here. I'm going to double click on htdocs folder, and here on I'm going to create a new directory. So I'm just going to click on new and folder, and I'm going to give it a name of Android Chatter. I'm going to press enter. Make sure that you just give the name to this folder or directory the same as you have given it in the socketer.java file. If I go back to socketer.java file, you would find it out that here we have actually given the server address and plus the folder name. So the folder name should be same as here as we are actually creating here in the htdocs folder. I'm going to double click on it, and then I'm going to open any preferred editor which you like the best for coding the PHP, like in Notepad, Notepad++, or any other editor which you prefer the best for writing your code of PHP. So I'm going to use the Notepad editor, and here on I'm just going to first of all create the MySQL database, and that database would actually help us in order to create something very familiar and usual. So in order to create the tables inside the database, I'm going to have to first create a database. To do that, I'm going to have to get into the PHP My Admin section. So I'm going to get back to my browser, and in that browser I'm going to write on this sentence like localhost/php my admin, and then it will get me to the PHP My Admin section, and here on I'm going to create a database. Actually, if I just click on here and I'm just going to write out Android Chatter, and this would be actually the database name of mine, and then I'm just going to create it, and that's it. Now we have created actually a database with the name of Android Chatter. It have a 0 tables yet, so I'm going to put on a tables in here by getting into my Notepad editor, and here on I'm just going to create the tables for it. So I'm going to use like create table if not exists and friends. So this table would be actually for friends. We're going to be taking care of all the friends which are in the list. So all the friends which are in the list would be actually stored in this friends table. I'm going to use and then ID, and that will be actually for int. I'm going to use the integer because ID is actually integer. I'm going to give it a 10 value. I'm going to specify it as integer, and then I'm going to give it like a not null, which means that ID is not null, and auto increment, which means it will be incremented by 1 automatically. I'm going to make an underscore in here, and that's it. Now I'm going to use a comma and hit enter, and give the provider ID in here who is actually sending the request. So I'm going to use a provider ID, and I'm going to use actually here on, that's it, and then I'm going to use int 10. It would be also of integer 10, not null, and auto increment. That's it. Now I'm going to provide a request ID, that who is actually requesting for the friend. So I'm going to use request ID, and I'm going to use int 10, not null, auto increment. That's it. The next I'm going to provide is a status, that whether user is online or offline. So I'm going to provide status, and it will be actually a binary 1 because status is whether 1 or 0, means true or false, and then not null and default. So it will not be incremented automatically, and it should be default. Now I'm going to put the first index as the primary key. So for that purpose I'm going to use primary key, and that will be like ID. That's it, and now that's the end of it. I'm just gonna press the brackets and I press enter. Now in the same way I'm going to create other tables too. So for time savage I'm going to pause the video and then I'm going to write those tables in here, and then I'm going to come back and will explain it. So now as you can see that I've written the table of messages. The friends is for the friends, which going to be taking care of the friends, like who is requesting for the friend, who is providing the friend request, and what is the status of the friend. Now the next thing is the messages, that what kind of messages we have for among or between the users. That from ID means that who is sending the message, and to ID means who is sending the message to whom, and sender T would be actually for a date time in here, and read means that to read the message with the not null. Actually not null means it is actually not null means it contains some values, which means, and read DT means that read the date time, and message text means that how much long would be the message text. So all these information would be stored inside these rows of the table messages. For example, if we send the message and if it has a length of 10, so it will be stored in a message text. And if we are actually sending from a person demo3, so demo3 would be stored from a UID. That ID of demo3 would be stored from UID. Now the last table which I've created in here is the users. Users would actually allow us to store the username, password, email, date, status, authentication, time, user key, IP, and port. All these are very important. When we begin to log in into the application, these all criteria are very important. The date should be in a format like this would be year, this would be like month and day, and this would be actually a time in minutes, seconds, and hours. Similarly with the authentication time, that at which time the user actually logged into the application, and the user key which we're going to be using the user key to match, and we're going to be telling that whether the user key matches with the authentified username or password, and then we're going to provide that person a privilege to enter the application. And similarly, as you know from his name, it is appeared that what is the purpose of username and password.